What if the way you spoke to yourself for the next 3 days could change the entire direction of your life? Not with luck, not with a ritual, not with anything you'd have to buy or believe on faith, with something you already do every waking minute, and have been doing wrong your whole life without knowing it. And here is what almost no one tells you. This is not new. The method I'm about to give you is everywhere right now. Modern teachers have built entire careers on it, dressed it in fresh words, and sold it back to you as a discovery of our time. But it was not discovered in our time. A man wrote down this exact protocol in 1937. The precise instructions, the timing, even the strange warning about what happens to you on the second day. And then he buried it inside a single chapter that almost no one alive has ever finished reading. His name was Napoleon Hill. And by the time this video ends, you will have the original, not the watered-down, repackaged, resold modern version. The thing itself, the way it was first written. So stay with me, because once you see where this really came from, you can never unsee it. Because the tragedy is not that you have no power over the conversation in your head. The tragedy is that you have been using that power this whole time, blindly against yourself. Every time you predicted failure with certainty, every time you rehearsed rejection before anyone rejected you, every time you called fear wisdom and delay proof, you were not being neutral. You were practicing a state. And a practiced state becomes a familiar home, even when that home is miserable. There is a way of speaking to yourself that quietly rebuilds the mind from the inside. Do it for 3 days, exactly as it was designed, and the doubt, the fear, the tired old story you've told yourself for years, it begins to come apart at the seams, and what moves into the empty space it leaves behind starts pulling toward you the very things you had quietly given up on. So sit with this for a moment, because everything that follows is built on top of it. Everything you have become, everything you are right now, and everything you are still going to be, comes down to one single thing. Not your luck, not your education, not the family you were born into. The conversation you are having with yourself every hour of every day, that voice in your head, the one that tells you what you can and cannot do, what is realistic, what is too late, who you are. You did not choose most of that voice. It was installed in you, by the people who raised you, by every disappointment you survived, by 10,000 small moments you've long since forgotten you ever felt. And then, without realizing it, you repeated it, quietly, daily, for years and years, until one day it stopped sounding like a voice at all and started sounding like the simple, obvious truth about your life. But it was never the truth. It was only ever a habit of speech turned inward, repeated so many thousands of times that it carved itself into you and started to feel like fact. And Hill understood this decades before the modern world had any language for it. He spent more than 20 years studying the most successful men of his era. Not the lucky ones who stumbled into fortune, but the built ones. The ones who rose from nothing again and again, no matter how many times life knocked them flat. And he found the same thing in all of them. They did not think the way ordinary people think. Every one of them had learned, on purpose or by accident, to take command of the one conversation that commands everything else. They had stopped letting the voice run loose. They had picked up the pen and started writing it themselves. Almost nobody else ever does. Almost everybody you will ever meet will wake up tomorrow and think the exact same thoughts they thought today, which were the same thoughts they thought yesterday and last year. The mind runs along a track it laid down long ago, and the life obediently follows the track. Same thoughts, same decisions, same year repeating itself under a different set of dates. You are about to step off that track. But before you can, you have to understand exactly why this works. Because if you don't understand the mechanism underneath it, I promise you, you will quit on the second day. And in a few minutes I'm going to tell you exactly why the second day is the day it all comes down to. So, let me be clear about who this is for. This is not a video for someone who wants a single sentence to rescue them, while they keep the same inner authority running underneath. This is for the person willing to interrupt the voice at the root. The person who is tired of feeling inspired at night and defeated by noon. The person who can finally admit that the outer problem may not be the first problem, that the first problem is the command, running silently beneath every reaction. There are two minds living inside you. There is the one you are thinking with right now, the one reading these words, weighing them, deciding whether to trust me. It reasons, it argues, it doubts, and beneath it there is a second mind, a far older, far deeper, far more powerful one. It runs your habits without asking you. It runs your reactions, your moods, your gut sense of what is possible and what is forever out of reach. All of it beneath your awareness, every second, whether you want it to or not. And here is the most important thing you will learn today about that deeper mind. It does not reason. It does not argue. It does not weigh the evidence. It simply accepts. It takes whatever you hand it, often enough, and with enough feeling behind it, and it quietly goes to work making that thing real. Real in your behavior, real in your choices, real in what you notice and what you walk straight past without ever seeing. Hill had a name for the act of deliberately handing an instruction down to that deeper mind. He called it autosuggestion, self-suggestion, the chosen, intentional feeding of a single thought into the part of you that is building your entire life on autopilot while you sleepwalk through your days. And here is the law that sits underneath all of it, the one the modern teachers quietly borrowed and almost never credit. The deeper mind cannot tell the difference between what is true and what is simply repeated. Read that again, because it is the hinge everything turns on. Say a thing to yourself often enough, with enough conviction behind it, and it stops mattering one bit whether it was ever true to begin with. It becomes true, not by magic, by repetition. The way a path through a tall grass field slowly becomes a road. You don't carve the road on purpose. You just walk the same line, again and again, until the ground itself gives way and the route makes itself permanent. And this is exactly why your limiting beliefs feel so much like solid facts. I'm just bad with money. My relationships always fall apart. I'm not the kind of person things ever work out for. Those are not facts about you. They are roads. Roads you walked so many thousands of times the ground gave way, and now the route feels like the only one there is. You auto-suggested every one of them into existence, accidentally, in the dark, with no idea you were doing it to yourself. So understand this clearly. The question was never whether you can program that deeper mind. You have been programming it relentlessly your whole life. The only real question that has ever mattered is whether you are going to keep doing it by accident, against yourself, or finally do it on purpose, with your eyes open, the exact way Hill laid it out, in your favor. In 1937, in the deepest pit of the Great Depression, when 1 in 4 men could not find work, Napoleon Hill published a book that would go on to outsell almost any book of its kind ever written. You know its name, Think and Grow Rich. And here is the strange thing about that book. Almost everyone owns it. Almost everyone has read the opening, the famous early chapters about desire and definiteness of purpose. And then, almost without exception, they stop. They never reach the actual engine of the book. They never sit with the short, quiet, almost unsettling chapter buried in the middle that Hill titled with a single word: Autosuggestion. That chapter is the protocol, the actual step-by-step instructions that the entire modern industry is, right now, reselling you as something new, because Hill did not write Think Positive. He had open contempt for advice that vague and useless. What he wrote was far more precise and far more demanding. He said, decide on the exact thing you want, with not one shred of fog around it. Write it down, in plain words, in the present tense, as though it is already and unquestionably yours. And then, this is the instruction nearly everyone skips right over. Read it out loud, twice every single day. Once in the morning, before the world has had a chance to get its hands on you, and once at night, in the last moments before you fall asleep. And as you read those words aloud, you must see yourself already in full possession of the thing, and feel in your chest exactly what you would feel if it were already done. Write it out loud, see it, feel it, morning and night. That is the entire method an entire generation of teachers is busy reselling you as a fresh discovery. The 3-day reset, the mirror routine, the morning and night ritual. Every last piece of it traces straight back to those few pages from 1937. And here is the most honest part of all. Hill never once claimed to have invented it. He said openly that he took it from the men he spent 20 years studying, who had taken it in turn from teachers older than them, stretching back further than anyone can clearly see. It was never a modern discovery. It was a recovery. Something old and quietly buried, dug back up. Before we go into the 3 days themselves, do one thing for me, and let it be your first act of the practice. Right now in the comments type the words, I begin. Just that. I begin. Say it before you've done anything. The way Hill said to speak the thing before it's true. I want to see how many of you are willing to step off the track tonight. And if this channel is pulling back curtains you never knew were there, Take 1 second to like and subscribe, because everything I show you only gets older and stranger from here. Now the protocol. Here is why the version you've almost certainly already tried, the one from the apps, the reels, the routines, quietly failed you. Because it did fail, didn't it? And it wasn't your fault. When this method got chopped up and repackaged for the modern audience, two things were quietly stripped out of it. And those two things happened to be the exact two things that made it work. The first was definiteness, and Hill was absolutely ruthless on this point. A weak, fuzzy desire produces a weak, fuzzy result every single time. I want to be happy. I want more money. The deeper mind does precisely nothing with fog like that. It needs an exact instruction. The precise thing in precise words, sharp enough that you could close your eyes and see it. Most people speak to themselves their whole lives in nothing but vague, smeared wishes, and then lie awake wondering why nothing ever truly changes. You would never hand a builder a blueprint that just said, "Build me something nice." And yet, that is exactly the instruction. Most people hand the most powerful builder they will ever have. The second thing they stripped out is the one that quietly ruins almost everyone. They removed the feeling. Hill could not have been clearer. The words alone do nothing. You can repeat a flat, hollow affirmation 10,000 times, and the deeper mind will calmly ignore everyone. The instruction only lands when it arrives, carried on the back of real emotion, what Hill called faith. Not hope, not crossed fingers, the settled, quiet, almost boring certainty of a thing you already own and have stopped worrying about. A thought without feeling is a letter with no address. It goes nowhere. A thought soaked through with feeling reaches the deeper mind directly and is accepted, instantly, as an order to be carried out. And here is the proof you've been ignoring your whole life. This is why fear works so fast. Fear is vivid. It comes with pictures. It comes with emotion. It comes with repetition. A person imagines the unpaid bill, imagines the rejection, imagines the failure, feels it in the body as if it were already certain, and then calls that being realistic. But look at the structure of what they're doing. They are feeding the deeper mind a picture, soaked in feeling, over and over, and then wondering why their life keeps moving as if the feared thing were already true. You have already proven, 1,000 times over, that this method works. You've just been running it in the wrong direction, so the reason your past attempts crumbled was never that the method is false. It's that someone handed you half of it and let you believe it was the whole. For the next 3 days, you're going to run the complete one. And before you begin, understand this. The 3 days are not powerful because they are short. They are powerful because they are contained. A contained test removes your excuse. You do not have to promise forever. You do not have to become a new person overnight. You only have to guard one instruction through 3 mornings, 3 afternoons, and 3 nights, long enough to show the deeper mind that a new ruler has walked into the room. Now, before I walk you through the first morning, I have to stop and be straight with you about something. What I am handing you here is one principle, one pulled from one chapter of one book, and here is what stops people cold. There are other books by this man, finished books, in his own words, that were never published while he was alive, manuscripts that sat locked away in private hands, unseen by the public, for decades after his death. The complete Think and Grow Rich, alongside work of his the public was never allowed to read, has very recently been brought back into one place, the actual physical books, not a file, and right now they're being given away for nothing but the cost of shipping. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what's inside those buried pages. I want you to open them yourself, cold, the way I did. The link is in the description and pinned to the top comment. If one single page is doing this to you right now, you already know you can't walk away without seeing the rest. Go look, then come straight back, because the 3 days start now. 3 days, not 3 weeks, not 30. 3 days is not nearly enough to finish rebuilding the mind, be honest. Nothing real finishes in 3 days, but 3 days is exactly enough to break the autopilot, to prove to that deeper mind that a new instruction has arrived at the door, and that this time you actually mean it. The old road does not vanish in 3 days, but 3 days of walking a new line, hard and with feeling, is enough to make the deeper mind stop and take notice that something has changed, and these will not be ordinary days. The one thing that makes them different is that across all 3, you are going to be awake to every word you say to yourself, and that alone, that raw awareness of the voice, is something the overwhelming majority of human beings never experience for even one waking hour in their entire lives. So before we begin, do the one piece of preparation Hill absolutely demanded. Decide your definite aim, the exact thing. Write a single short statement, in the present tense as though it is already and completely yours. Not I want to, not I will. I am, I have. Make it specific enough that you could shut your eyes and watch it like a scene. For example, not I want money, but I now earn a steady growing income through work I am proud of. Not I want confidence, but I speak with calm authority, and people listen when I do. Not I want to be loved, but I am the kind of person who is valued exactly as I am. Notice the shape. Present tense, specific, spoken from dignity, never from begging. That sentence becomes your instruction, and you carry it, unchanged, through all 3 days. And here is a simple test for your statement. Say it once, out loud, and listen for what rises up against it. The objection that appears will almost always reveal the old command that has been ruling you. If you say, I act with calm authority, and a voice snaps back, no you don't, do not be discouraged. You have just found the exact sentence that has been running your life. If you say, I receive steady income through valuable work, and the old voice mutters, money never stays for people like us, you have found the road you've been walking for years. The objection is not a stop sign, it is a diagnosis. Once you find that objection, do not fight it in a rage. Do not turn the practice into a screaming match with yourself. Simply recognize it, withdraw your authority from it, and calmly return to the chosen instruction. The old sentence became strong because you repeated it without awareness. The new one becomes strong because you repeat it with awareness. That difference is everything. And be very careful with one phrase. I'm just being realistic. Most people use those words to protect an old limitation and feel responsible while doing it. Realism is useful when it names the conditions of the moment clearly. It becomes a prison the instant it decides your identity from the past. You can acknowledge the exact number in your bank account without declaring yourself poor by nature. You can acknowledge a failed attempt without naming yourself a failure. Conditions are facts of the moment. Identity is the command you carry into the next one. And do not keep rewriting the statement 10 times, because the old mind wants to make endless revision feel like progress. Refine it once, until it is definite, present, and believable enough to carry weight. Then use it. The power was never in hunting for the perfect words. The power is in returning to chosen words until they become the dominant thought. Now here is the day, the very moment you open your eyes tomorrow, and I mean the actual instant, before you reach for your phone, before the first worry floods in, before the world lays a single finger on you. You are in the single most valuable state you will be in all day long. Do not waste it the way you've wasted it every morning of your life, because in that thin space between sleep and full waking, the deeper mind is wide open. The guard that argues with you all day, the one that snaps, don't be ridiculous. The second you try to imagine something better, it hasn't woken up yet. Hill knew this. The modern teachers know it too. It's the entire reason every routine they sell you begins at dawn. The morning is not a productivity trick. It is the one moment in your whole day when the door to the deeper mind stands unlocked. So while that door is open, you speak your statement, out loud or in a low, deliberate whisper if you must be quiet, but spoken because Hill insisted on the voice. The spoken word commands the deeper mind in a way silent thought never can. You say your definite aim plainly, as though reporting something already unremarkably true, and as the words leave you, you do the one thing that separates this completely from empty repetition. You see it. You build the picture in full, where you are, what's around you, what it looks like to already have this thing in your life, and you let yourself feel it, the relief of it, the quiet, settled certainty, the almost mundane ordinariness of already owning it. Hold the picture and the feeling together for a few minutes, not straining, not forcing, settling into it the way you settle into a warm, familiar memory, and your mind will drift. It will bolt straight for the unpaid bill, the full inbox, the argument from yesterday. That is normal. When it does, bring it back, gently, without scolding, because this is not relaxation, this is not meditation. This is the deliberate, active instruction of the deeper mind, and your one job in these minutes is to hold the picture and the feeling together long enough that the deeper mind accepts the order as its own. That is the morning. 5 minutes, 10 at most. The most important minutes of your entire day, and almost no one ever spends them this way. Do not rush it. The mind can always tell when you're merely checking a box. If you say the statement while already reaching for the phone, the old world has already entered the room. Let the statement have the room first. Let it be the first impression of the day. Then the day takes you, as it always does. And somewhere in the afternoon, you'll notice the world has completely buried your morning. The old voice will be back at full volume. This is exactly when you reach for the second contact. Find a quiet place, your car, an empty room, a stairwell, anywhere you can be alone for 5 honest minutes, and you reconnect with the statement. The same words unchanged, but this time, let your body into it. Hill's successful men did not sit frozen and merely wish. They moved, so you stand. You walk, with purpose, as you speak the words. You let your body physically rehearse the bearing of a person who already has the thing you're claiming, because the deeper mind reads the body just as closely as the words. And then, all day long, in the spaces between the sessions, you do the harder work. You listen, constantly, for the old voice, and the very instant you catch yourself in the old script, I can't, this is hopeless, who am I even kidding, you stop. Out loud if you can, under your breath if you can't, and you replace it immediately. I am capable. I find a way. This is already becoming mine. Not one negative thought gets to slip past unchallenged, because every one of those stray thoughts is itself a tiny autosuggestion, quietly carving the old road deeper. And for these 3 days, every last one of them gets caught and turned. And here is what makes that watch so demanding. Your old identity does not always speak in dramatic sentences. Sometimes it whispers through a joke at your own expense. Sometimes it shows up as a sigh. Sometimes it's a quick, casual assumption you don't even think to question. For 3 days, your job is not to become perfect. Your job is to become conscious. Conscious enough to hear the old sentence before it becomes the very air you breathe that day. And at night, the final gate, and in some ways the most powerful of all. In the last moments before sleep, you return to your statement one more time. This repetition matters more than any other, because whatever thought you carry across the threshold into sleep, the deeper mind takes and works on, all night long while you are gone. So you make your statement the very last thing alive in your mind. You see it, you feel it, and you let it carry you down into sleep. That is 1 full day. Morning, afternoon, night. 3 deliberate contacts, and a constant watch kept over the voice in between. Now here is the part nobody warns you about. The part that decides everything. On the second day, something is going to go wrong. And when it does, you have to understand, in advance, exactly what it means. Because if you don't, you will quit. And you will quit at the precise moment it was finally starting to work. On day 2, it will stop feeling true. The words will turn to ash in your mouth. They'll sound hollow, fake, almost embarrassing. And a voice will rise up, calm and reasonable and utterly convincing. And it will say, "This is stupid. This isn't working. You're just standing here lying to yourself." You may feel irritable for no reason, tired in a way that doesn't match your sleep, faintly ridiculous. And you will want, badly, to stop. Hear me now, clearly, because this is the whole thing. That wall is not failure. That wall is the proof. It is the single best sign that it is working. What you are feeling on day 2 is the old conditioning fighting for its life. For years, maybe your whole life, your deeper mind ran on a fixed baseline, a familiar story, a familiar, comfortable set of limits on who you are. And it is comfortable to that mind for one reason only, not because it's good for you, but because it is known. And the moment you start feeding it a brand new instruction, the old pattern panics and pushes back with everything it has. It wants the familiar road. It calls the new line a lie, because to the old pattern, it genuinely is a lie. It is something that is not true yet. The discomfort you feel on day 2 is the exact, physical sensation of a deep old road being abandoned and a new line being cut through ground that has never been walked. It is supposed to be uncomfortable. The voice hissing, "This isn't working," is not the voice of truth. It is the voice of the old programming, defending its own existence the only way it knows how. So on day 2, you do not stop. You do the sessions, even though every word feels false, especially because they feel false. Every single time you hold your statement steady against that wall and refuse to set it down, you are not just repeating words anymore. You are winning the argument with your own past. The day it feels the hardest is the day you are the closest. Hill had a name for the one quality that carries a person through this exact point: persistence. And he said flatly that it was the single trait that separated the men who made it from the thousands who came so close and turned back. And there is a specific moment on day 2 when the old mind will demand evidence. It will say, "If this is real, where is the proof? Do not take that bait." The proof at this stage is not some result out in the world. The proof is that you did not surrender your own inner speech back to the old authority. The first victory is not that the door opens. The first victory is that you stop calling yourself locked out. Pliff through day 2, and you arrive somewhere almost nobody ever reaches. On the third day, something quiet happens. So quiet you might almost walk right past it. You will catch a negative thought, and you will redirect it before you have even consciously decided to. Automatically, without effort. The watching, the catching, the turning, all of it that took your full concentration on day 1, it starts to run on its own. In the background, without you. That is the signal. That is the new line becoming a road. That is the deeper mind beginning to accept the instruction as its own. And you may notice smaller things gathering at the edges. You sleep a little differently. You catch yourself standing a little straighter without anyone telling you to. You speak with a fraction more steadiness than you did a week ago. None of it is dramatic. None of it is fireworks. It is not supposed to be. These are the first faint signs that a new instruction has been accepted, and the deeper mind has quietly, patiently begun to build from it. So write down what changed. Not the fantasy, the evidence. Did you catch an old thought faster than before? Did you stop one sentence from hardening into identity? Did you make one decision from steadiness instead of pressure? Did you fall asleep with a chosen instruction instead of fear? These are the early signs, and they are easy to dismiss precisely because they are so quiet. Do not dismiss them. A new road always begins as a faint line before it ever becomes a path. 3 days does not finish the work. I won't lie to you and say it does, but 3 days proves the work is real. It proves it to the deeper mind, and far, far more importantly, it proves it to you. You will have done deliberately, with your eyes wide open, the exact thing Napoleon Hill described in 1937. And you will understand, not in your head, but in your own body, why the men he spent 2 decades studying guarded this so carefully. Now let me be very careful with you here, because this is the exact place where the modern versions start lying, and I refuse to. When you change the conversation you've been having with yourself, the world does not magically rearrange its furniture around you. Things don't fall out of the sky. What changes is you, and then, through you, what you do and what you finally become able to see. Here is the real mechanism, and Hill named it plainly, without a drop of mysticism. The opportunities that suddenly seemed to appear out of nowhere were, almost always, sitting right there the whole time. You simply were not built to see them. A mind soaked in doubt walks straight past the open door every time. Because doubt does not believe in doors, and so it never looks for them. But a mind that has been instructed, day after day, to expect, to own, to belong. That mind sees the very same door and walks through it without a second thought. Hill called it the prepared mind. The chance was always on the table. You simply, finally, became the kind of person who reaches out and takes it. And the people around you begin to respond differently too. Not because you've cast a spell over them, but because you carry yourself differently now. You decide faster, you speak with more authority and less apology, and people instinctively answer the bearing of a person who has stopped apologizing for wanting their own life. This is not luck. It is not the universe deciding to reward you. It is the oldest and most reliable mechanism in every one of the books. Hill spends his life covering. Change the instruction running quietly underneath everything, and the entire life built on top of it slowly, and then all at once, and then inevitably follows. And that is what makes this both powerful and demanding. You cannot use it to hide from your life. You use it to meet your life from a different command. The bill still has to be handled. The work still has to be done. The hard conversation still has to be had. But the person handling all of it is no longer taking orders from the old sentence. And that difference, repeated long enough, changes what you attempt, what you finish, what you tolerate, and what you finally make yourself available for. So tomorrow morning, before your feet ever touch the floor, you are going to have a choice to make. It is the same choice you have had every single morning of your life. Except now, for the first time, you can actually see it sitting there in front of you. You can let the old voice run. The one that was installed in you. The one you never once chose. The one that has been quietly writing the story of your life on autopilot, in the dark, while you slept through it. Or you can reach out, take the pen back into your own hand, speak the exact instruction this man spelled out almost 90 years ago, and begin the single most important conversation you will ever have. The one with yourself, 3 days. That is the whole of what I'm asking. Not because 3 days finishes anything. It doesn't, and I won't pretend otherwise. But because 3 days is enough to prove to you, with your own evidence, in your own body, that it is true. And after that, you will never again need me, or anyone, to convince you of it, because you will have felt it move for yourself. So for these 3 days, become the guardian of that place. Let no old phrase walk in without being seen. Let no fear quietly become your identity without being challenged. Let no delay rename you. Let no silence get to tell you who you are. The world may still be loud, but it no longer gets to speak first. You speak first, you choose the instruction, and you return to it morning, afternoon, and night, until the deeper mind finally understands that the old conversation has lost its crown. The method is not new. It was never new. It was written down, buried inside a chapter almost no one finishes, and forgotten by nearly everyone. Until right now. Until you. And one last thing. Because you've earned it. You just felt something move across these last few minutes. I'd bet on it. So sit with this. What I gave you was a single page. One principle, from one chapter, by a man who wrote things he was never even allowed to publish in his lifetime. The complete work, including the manuscripts they kept locked away from the public for decades, is being given away right now. The real physical books, for the cost of shipping and nothing more. I'm not going to tell you what's inside them. I want you to open them yourself. The link is in the description and pinned to the very top comment. If one buried page could do this to you in a few minutes, you already know you cannot walk away without seeing the rest. Go now, before it's gone, and if this changed the way you see something you were certain you already understood, then subscribe, so the next one finds you. Because there are more of these, many more, things you were told were modern, things that are far, far older than anyone ever admitted to you, found for a very long time by only a few, and now finally by you.